The fire crackled, a lone bastion against the December night. Outside, the wind howled like a banshee, clawing at the cabin walls. David huddled closer to the warmth, a shiver running down his spine. He was alone, miles from civilization, nestled deep within the silent woods. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Each second resonated with the heavy solitude that pressed upon him. He glanced at the window. Frost had painted intricate patterns on the glass, obscuring the inky blackness beyond. The storm raged on, a symphony of wind and snow. He took a long sip of his coffee, seeking comfort in its warmth. David sighed, a sense of unease creeping in. He couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, a primal fear gnawing at the edges of his mind. The grandfather clock chimed 12 times, each toll echoing through the silent cabin. Midnight, the witching hour. David's grip tightened around his mug. He yearned for the first light of dawn, for the shadows to recede with the coming day. Suddenly a sound, sharp and unmistakable, a knock on the front door. David froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Who would venture out on a night like this? He cautiously approached the door, his hand hovering over the latch. He peered through the peephole, but saw nothing but swirling snow and darkness. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Taking a deep breath, David unlocked the door and pulled it open. Standing on his doorstep, illuminated by the dim porch light, was a woman. Her face was pale and drawn, framed by strands of dark, wet hair. She wore a tattered coat, offering little protection from the biting wind. "Please," she rasped, her voice hoarse. "May I come in?" Something wasn't right. David felt a chill, colder than the icy air that swept into the cabin. He glanced down at her feet. There were no footprints in the fresh snow. How was that possible? I didn't hear anything," he stammered, his voice betraying his growing unease. "How did you get here?" The woman just stared at him, her eyes dark and unblinking. A strange, unsettling smile played on her lips. "You invited me, David," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. "Don't you remember?" David backed away slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. I don't know who you are," he stammered, fear constricting his throat. The woman stepped inside, the warmth of the cabin seeming to have no effect on her. She shed her coat, revealing a simple black dress. Her eyes, once dull and lifeless, now glowed with an eerie light. Her features contorted, her mouth stretching into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. "You invited me," she hissed, her voice a guttural growl. "And now you will pay the price!" David stumbled back, tripping over the rug as the woman lunged. Her scream echoed through the cabin, a sound of pure, primal rage. The storm raged throughout the night. By morning, the snow had stopped, and the sun peeked over the horizon, casting long shadows across the pristine white landscape. But the cabin was gone, vanished without a trace. The only evidence that it ever existed was a patch of scorched earth and deep claw marks etched into the frozen ground.